I would like now to proceed to the presentation from CNSC staff as outlined in CMD 17H5 and H5.A. I'll turn to Ms. Adi to make the presentation. Ms. Adi Tadros, sorry, to make this presentation. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir, and good morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Haiti Tadros, and I'm still the Director General of the Directorate of Nuclear Cycle and Facilities Regulation at the CNSC. Ms. Corinne Gren, Director of the Waste and Decommissioning Division, as well as Ms. Shirley Au, to her right, of the same division, are with me again today to present Ontario Power Generation's application for the continued operation of the Pickering Waste Management Facility. We are also joined by technical CNSC specialists and colleagues familiar with this file who are available to answer any questions that you may have. Our presentation summarizes and highlights CNSC staff's written submission, CMD 17H5. This slide provides an outline of what we'll be describing for you today. Ontario Power Generation's license renewal application was submitted in October of 2016. In their submission, OPG has requested that the Commission renew its operating license for a period of 11 years and authorize the site preparation and construction of additional new buildings for the storage of dry storage containers. As a result of staff's review of the application, as well as operating performance at the Pickering Waste Management Facility for the current license period, staff recommends that the Commission issue OPG a license for 11 years until August 31st, 2028. I will now pass the presentation over to my colleagues, who will begin by providing an overview of the facility.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. My name is Corinne Glenn, and I am also still the Director of the Waste and Decommissioning Division at the CNSC. The next few slides will provide an overview of the location and layout of the Pickering Waste Management Facility and discuss the activities carried out at this facility. The Pickering Waste Management Facility is located adjacent to the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station on the north shore of Lake Ontario. Almost all of the waste at the Pickering Waste Management Facility is used nuclear fuel, and the remaining small portion is intermediate level waste from the retubing of the Pickering A nuclear generating station. And this waste is located at the retube component storage area. That area is now closed to the receipt of new waste. The dry storage containers, or DSCs, are loaded with used nuclear fuel at the Pickering station, and they're clamped shut. They are then transferred to the Pickering Waste Management Facility, where they are welded and placed into storage. OPG does not process waste at the Pickering Waste Management Facility. OPG's current license was issued by the Commission on April 1st, 2008. We're now on slide 7. And it is valid until March 31st, 2018. The license authorizes the safe handling, management, and interim storage of radioactive waste solely from the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station, and the construction of 2 dry storage buildings, one of which was constructed and commissioned in 2009. Moving on to slide 8. OPG submitted its license application in October 2016, although the current license does not expire until March 2018. CNSC staff performed a technical assessment of OPG's application and undertook a review of OPG's performance over the current license period. OPG's performance in all SCAs has remained stable or improved over this period. Through CNSC's compliance monitoring program, CNSC staff have also verified OPG's implementation of program improvements. The request for renewal was submitted early because OPG had anticipated requiring some additional buildings as early as 2018. An 11-year license period would result in an expiry in 2028, which is 10 years from the current license expiry date of 2018. Slide 9. In addition to the construction of the remaining DSC storage building authorized in their current license, OPG has requested approval for site preparation and construction of 2 additional DSC storage buildings and 1 DSC processing building to replace the existing one. As with their current license, CNSC staff have proposed license requirements for OPG to submit documents prior to the commencement of construction, as well as a whole point that requires the commissioning reports to be submitted and accepted by CNSC prior to the operation of the additional structures. CNSC staff recommend that the Commission authorize the delegation of authority for acceptance of the commissioning reports as outlined in staff CMD 17H5. Moving on to slide 10. This slide is a map showing the Pickering nuclear site that provides the location of the Pickering Waste Management Facility in relation to the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station. Phase 1 is located at the southernmost point of the map, while Phase 2 at the easternmost point of the site. Okay, it's going to advance. So we're on slide 11 now. Thank you. An overall view of the Pickering Waste Management Facility is provided on this slide. OPG has requested for approval for the site preparation and construction of additional buildings. These are shown in Phase 2 on the right of the slide as follows. The 2 DSC storage buildings are represented by H on the far right side of the slide, and the 1 DSC processing building to replace the current processing building is represented by F, also on the right side of the slide. The next few slides discuss CNSC's regulatory oversight of the Pickering Waste Management Facility. Oh, we have it. Perfect. Thank you very much. The CNSC has a robust regulatory framework in place to ensure the continued safe operation of licensed nuclear facilities. Regulatory oversight is provided by CNSC staff to ensure licensees operate in a safe manner and in compliance with regulatory requirements. The CNSC verifies compliance through site inspections and the review of operational activities and licensee documentation. Licensees are also required to report routine performance data and unusual occurrences. In addition, CNSC staff carry out investigations of unplanned events or accidents that occur at the licensee site. CNSC's approach to compliance includes activities to encourage compliance, verification activities to assess compliance, and graduated enforcement actions in cases of non-compliance. Over the current license period, CNSC staff spent 848 person days of regulatory oversight effort for the Pickering Waste Management Facility. The increased licensing effort noted in 2016 on this slide is a reflection of the effort associated with the reviews of the documents submitted in support of the renewal and staff's preparation for this hearing. Over the same period, CNSC staff conducted 30 on-site inspections, as well as other numerous site visits, meetings, and events involving CNSC technical specialists. Inspections conducted by CNSC staff during the current license period did not identify any safety significant findings. When a non-compliance is identified, CNSC staff assess the significance of non-compliance, determine the appropriate enforcement action, and relay this to the licensee in a detailed inspection report. The implementation of corrective actions is continually monitored by CNSC staff through to closure. All corrective actions for the Pickering Waste Management Facility have been closed. OPG is required to report to the CNSC situations or events of potential safety significance. OPG has also implemented a public information program that includes a disclosure protocol. Under the requirements of this program, events or incidents of interest to its stakeholder community are disseminated to the public. OPG submits compliance and performance reports and routinely reports on the results of ongoing monitoring activities that cover a variety of safety-related topics to the CNSC. Event reports that are significant in nature or may be of public interest are brought to the attention of the Commission during public meetings by CNSC staff. OPG also publishes information about events and compliance reports, as well as key license renewal documentation placed on their website. In addition, CNSC staff report annually to the Commission through the regulatory oversight reports. I will now pass the presentation over to Ms. Shirley Au to present CNSC staff's performance assessment of current operations at the Pickering Waste Management Facility.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the Commission. My name is Shirley Au, and I'm a Senior Project Officer with the Waste and Decommissioning Division. Regulatory oversight is performed in accordance with the standard set of safety and control areas, or SCAs. SCAs are technical topics used across all CNSC regulated facilities and activities to assess, evaluate, review, verify, and report on licensee regulatory requirements and performance. The table on this slide provides the overall ratings for each safety and control area at the Pickering Waste Management Facility. As detailed in CNSC staff's written submission, CMD 17-H5, OPG has maintained a satisfactory rating across all SCAs during the current license period, and since 2011, a fully satisfactory rating for operating performance, safety analysis, conventional health and safety, and security. To summarize CNSC's evaluation of OPG's performance for the current license period, and as detailed in CNSC staff CMD, OPG's Pickering Waste Management Facility programs have met regulatory requirements and are effectively implemented by OPG. Worker doses and environmental releases have remained well below regulatory limits, and OPG's performance has been satisfactory or fully satisfactory in all safety and control areas for the current license period. CNSC staff will continue to monitor OPG's performance through regulatory oversight activities to verify that OPG has made adequate provision of the protection for workers, the public, and the environment. The following slides will provide a summary as well as highlights from CNSC staff CMD. While CNSC's written submission covers all 14 SCAs for the current license period, the following matters of regulatory interest were considered to be of particular interest to stakeholders, Aboriginal groups, the public, and the Commission. So much of the same safety areas are covered in yesterday's presentation, so this is a shorter version relevant to Pickering. For the management system, OPG has effectively implemented CSAN 286-12. In 2013, OPG implemented a new organizational structure, consolidating some corporate programs and updating its governing documentation. These documents describe the management system under which OPG carries out license activities at the Pickering Waste Management Facility. Further changes in the organizational structure were made within OPG in 2016. Following a thorough review, CNSC concluded that these changes did not result in any changes to the Pickering Waste Management Facility organization structure or impact the safe conduct of license activities, and that OPG maintained the management system at the Pickering Waste Management Facility that complies with CSAN 286-12. The Human Performance Management SCA covers activities that enables effective human performance through the development and implementation of processes. These processes ensure a sufficient number of licensee personnel are in all relevant job areas, excuse me, and the necessary knowledge, skills, procedures, and tools are in place to safely carry out their duties. OPG has a robust and documented system approach to training, or SAT-based training system, and a training plan that meets regulatory requirements identified in CNSC Reg Doc 2.2.2. The next three slides cover the operating performance, safety and control area. Operating performance includes an overall review of the conduct of license activities and the activities that enable effective operating performance. Operating performance is divided into high-level waste operations and construction activities. High-level waste operations cover the processing of dry storage containers, or DSCs, which store used fuel. This table provides the number of DSCs stored annually over the current license period, which totals to 394. As of December 31st, 2016, 836 DSCs are stored at the Pickering Waste Management Facility. The current total capacity is 1,176 DSCs. Under the current license, OPG is authorized to construct 2 additional storage buildings. The licensee cannot conduct operations within the additional DSC storage buildings without the submission of a commissioning report that is acceptable to a person authorized by the Commission, as outlined in the current license. In 2009, CNSC staff reviewed and accepted the commissioning report for storage building number 3. OPG has requested that storage building number 4 be carried over to the proposed license. The safety analysis, safety and control area covers the maintenance of the safety analysis that supports the overall safety case for the facility. CNSC staff have reviewed and are satisfied with OPG's safety report that was submitted in 2013. A revised safety report is expected in 2018. Over the next licensing period, OPG has committed to implementing enhancements to their safety analysis program. The next safety and control area is physical design. CNSC staff have assessed OPG's design program and concluded that it meets regulatory requirements. OPG has a formal service agreement with the technical standards and safety authority as the authorized inspection agency. Over the next license period, OPG has committed to implementing the requirements of CSAN 393-13, the National Fire Code of Canada 2010, and the National Building Code of Canada 2010. The fitness for service safety and control area covers activities that impact the physical condition of structures, systems, and components to ensure that they remain effective over time. CNSC staff verified that OPG's fitness for service program for the Pickering Waste Management Facility complies with the requirements of CNSC Reg Doc RD 334. OPG has committed to transition to compliance with the requirements of CNSC regulatory document Reg Doc 2.6.3. The next 5 slides cover the radiation protection safety and control area. The maximum effective dose received by a worker in the current license period was 1.6 millisieverts, which is 3.2% of the regulatory dose limit of 50 millisieverts. Throughout the license period, no nuclear energy workers' radiation exposure exceeded the CNSC regulatory dose limits. As shown on this slide, the maximum dose received by a worker was in 2008. This was attributed to a maintenance worker addressing a backlog of dry storage containers that required painting. Overall, the maximum and average whole body dose trends have remained consistent over the license period. As shown on this slide, during the license period, there have been no action level exceedances related to dose to workers, and there were no contamination control events in excess of OPG's contamination control action level for the Pickering Waste Management Facility. The Pickering Waste Management Facility is located within the site boundary of the Pickering nuclear site, adjacent to the nuclear generating station. Dose to the public is estimated for the site, including both the generating station and the waste management facility. The dose to the public associated with the Pickering Waste Management Facility accounts for a very small fraction of the site dose to the public. As shown on this slide, the environmental releases outside of the site over the license period have resulted in low doses, well below the regulatory limit of 1 millisievert per year to members of the public. OPG recently conducted a comprehensive review of the current radiological action levels for workers. The review was performed to ensure that the action levels remain adequately sensitive to detect the emergence of a potential loss of control of OPG's radiation protection program elements. The results of the review, which outline the basis and selection of action levels for the Pickering Waste Management Facility, was submitted to CNSC staff for verification. CNSC staff concluded from the review that the 2 action levels proposed by OPG for surface level contamination and individual external dose are acceptable. However, CNSC staff have requested OPG to provide further information on additional action levels. The Conventional Health and Safety and Control Area covers the implementation of a program to manage workplace safety hazards and to protect personnel and equipment. As shown in the table presented on this slide, there were no lost time injuries during the current license period. OPG has implemented an effective health and safety program during the current license period and continues to demonstrate its ability to keep workers safe from occupational injuries. The Environmental Protection, Safety and Control Area will be covered in the next 5 slides. OPG has developed and implemented a corporate-wide environmental management system, which includes activities such as establishing annual objective and targets and is verified through internal and compliance audits. CNSC staff have verified that OPG's environmental management system for the Pickering Waste Management Facility complied with the requirements of CNSC Reg Doc 2.9.1. While OPG has established derived release limits that are in compliance with CSA 288.1-08, OPG has committed to updating the derived release limits for the Pickering Waste Management Facility to be in compliance with CSA 288.1-14 by the end of 2017. This table shows the annual total emissions for the radiological parameters listed. The active ventilation exhaust from the dry storage container processing building is monitored for radioactive particulates. Stack emissions continue to be effectively controlled and remain consistently below the respective DRLs for the current license period. A small quantity of radioactive liquids from the Pickering Waste Management Facility Phase 1 buildings could be generated during the DSC decontamination in the DSC processing building. The active liquid tanks in the DSC processing building are sampled for tritium and gross beta gamma prior to being routed to the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station active liquid waste system, where it is monitored and accounted for in the nuclear generating station releases. As shown in this table, tritium releases were well below the derived release limits. All the data reported to CNSC staff through the Pickering Waste Management Facility quarterly reports. The table on this slide provides gross beta gamma in liquid effluents, which were all below the derived release limits. OPG had committed to the implementation of 3 CSA standards, as listed in this slide. CNSC staff have determined that these deadlines are acceptable based on the effective implementation of OPG's current program. CNSC staff will review all submissions related to the implementation of these standards and monitor program implementation through the conduct of compliance verification activities. OPG conducts regular exercises involving the City of Pickering Fire Department and Emergency Medical Services to ensure the familiarity with the site, opportunities to train together, as well as to ensure compatibility of response resources between the on-site and off-site response organizations. OPG prepares post-exercise reports regarding emergency response services team performance, plan and procedure adequacy, and any subsequent opportunities for improvement are then entered into the action tracking system for correction or improvement. CNSC have verified that OPG's Emergency Management and Fire Protection Program for the Pickering Waste Management Facility is in compliance with applicable CNSC regulatory and performance objectives. CNSC staff have verified that OPG's emergency preparedness measures met applicable regulatory and performance objectives. Staff monitor OPG's implementation of this program through the regular compliance activities. OPG has committed to the implementation of Reg Doc 2.10.1 by the end of 2018. The next safety and control area is waste management, which will be covered over the next 4 slides. The specific areas that comprise waste management at the Pickering Waste Management Facility include waste minimization, waste management practices, and decommissioning plans. In 2013, the Pickering Waste Management Facility instituted a Likely Clean Waste Segregation Initiative to improve its own performance in the area of waste minimization. Specific waste collection stations were set up at the facility. Through enhanced radioactive contamination monitoring and procedures, waste that was once considered radioactive by default is now thoroughly monitored and released if clean. OPG has committed to implementing the requirements of 3 CSA standards related to waste by October 31st, 2017, and these are listed on this slide. In terms of decommissioning, the objective of decommissioning is to permanently retire a facility from service in a manner that ensures the health, safety, and security of workers, the public, and the environment are protected. OPG's preliminary decommissioning plan, or PDP, for the Pickering Waste Management Facility sets out the strategy and the preliminary plan by which the facility will be decommissioned in the future. The PDP must be kept current to reflect any changes in the facility or operations. CNSC requires OPG to revise the PDP for the Pickering Waste Management Facility at a minimum of every 5 years or when required by the Commission. The Pickering Waste PDP was last revised and presented to the Commission in 2012. CNSC verified that OPG's PDP complies with the requirements of CSA N294-09, which is decommissioning of facilities containing nuclear substances. The figure here on this slide shows the life cycle timeline for the Pickering Waste Management Facility using the dates from OPG's preliminary decommissioning plan for the Pickering Waste Management Facility that was submitted to CNSC in early 2017. OPG's strategy for decommissioning the Pickering Waste Management Facility is to dismantle the facilities once all waste is removed and the facility is no longer required. Since all waste will be removed from the facility prior to decommissioning, little residual radioactivity is expected to be present at the facility. As a result, there will be no need for a deferment of decommissioning. OPG's PDP for the Pickering Waste Management Facility states that the site will meet the release criteria for a license to abandon. In terms of security, safety and control areas, CNSC staff verified that OPG has implemented and maintains an effective security program at the Pickering Waste Management Facility. The program exceeds regulatory requirements based on OPG's performance, including the enhancement of security of Phase 1 of the Pickering Waste Management Facility and updated security operating procedures for that facility. The Safeguards and Non-Proliferation Safety and Control Area. CNSC have reviewed OPG's safeguard program and confirmed that it conforms to CNSC requirements to meet Canada's international safeguards obligations, and that it complies with the requirements of CNSC regulatory document RD 336. OPG supported the IAEA new technology development and application, including the field trials to the laser mapping container verification, as shown in the photos on this slide. The intent is for this technology to replace the metal seals currently applied to the dry storage containers. And lastly, the Packaging and Transport Safety and Control Area. OPG has a packaging and transport program for on-site shipments for the Pickering Waste Management Facility that provides an equivalent level of safety to workers, the general public, and the environment as is required for off-site transportation. CNSC staff confirmed that Pickering Waste Management Facility's packaging and transport program meets all regulatory requirements. I will now pass the presentation back to Ms. Glenn.
Thank you, Ms. Zhao. I will now discuss other regulatory matters that may be of a particular interest to stakeholders, Aboriginal groups, the public, and the Commission. CNSC staff identified 8 Aboriginal groups and affiliated organizations who may have an interest in the proposed license renewal as listed on this slide. These groups were identified as the proposed activities are located within their respective treaty lands or asserted traditional territories, and they have requested to be kept informed of licensing reviews. CNSC staff sent letters of information in November 2016 to the identified groups with information on the renewal and followed up with phone calls. Each group was also directly notified of the CNSC 101 public information session that was held in Pickering in February 2017. All of the identified First Nations and Métis groups have been encouraged to participate in the review process and in the public hearing to advise the Commission directly of any concerns they may have in relation to the license application. The public, Aboriginal groups, and other stakeholders were informed of the availability of participant funding through a series of public communications, as listed on this slide. To support public participation in the regulatory review process, participant funding of up to $50,000 was offered to interveners. Funding up to $42,251 was awarded to the 3 groups listed on this slide. As Mr. LeBlanc mentioned previously, one applicant has withdrawn their request for funding. CNSC staff and OPG CMD were made available to the public on February 10th, 2017. Hearing interventions covered a broad range of topics, several of which were addressed in this presentation, including long-term planning to extend on-site storage, safety and control area rankings and operating performance, monitoring of liquid effluents, surface water, stormwater, and groundwater, transportation of dry storage containers, and OPG's public information program. Staff are prepared to respond to questions the Commission may have regarding all interventions associated with these proceedings. Following the Fukushima Daiichi accident, the CNSC developed an action plan that required OPG to re-examine the safety case for its waste management facilities, including the Pickering Waste Management Facility. While OPG did not identify any significant issues that required immediate corrective measures at the Pickering Waste Management Facility, they did identify additional improvements and enhancements. CNSC staff have reviewed and are satisfied with OPG's implementations of these improvements to date. And CNSC staff have reviewed OPG's update on Fukushima-related activities submitted in December 2014 and concluded that all identified activities for the Pickering Waste Management Facilities have been completed. At the last license renewal for the Pickering Waste Management Facility in 2008, the Commission directed CNSC staff to prepare interim status reports after the 3rd and 7th year of the license period. These status reports were presented in 2010 and 2015 at Commission public meetings. The CNSC staff now report on these facilities through regulatory oversight reports, which replace the interim status reports. The most recent regulatory oversight report for the Pickering Waste Management Facility was presented at the Commission meeting on December 2016 in CMD 16 M50. Beginning with the report covering 2017, the Pickering Waste Management Facility will be presented to the Commission as part of the regulatory oversight report for Canadian nuclear power plants. Natural Resources Canada has confirmed that OPG has adequate nuclear liability insurance under the Nuclear Liability and Compensation Act, which came into force on January 1st, 2017. Under paragraph 24.5 of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act, OPG is required to provide a financial guarantee in a form that is acceptable to the Commission. OPG maintains a consolidated financial guarantee for all of its nuclear assets, including the Pickering Waste Management Facility, which was accepted by the Commission in 2012. At the end of 2016, the total guarantee was valued at $17.96 billion, which is higher than the decommissioning cost estimates of $15.55 billion for all of OPG's nuclear assets. CNSC staff have received and conclude that OPG's financial guarantee meets the requirements for 2016. OPG submitted a revised preliminary decommissioning plan and financial guarantee in early 2017, and CNSC staff will be presenting this revised financial guarantee to the Commission by the end of 2017. CNSC staff also confirmed that OPG complies with the cost recovery fees regulation and that OPG's public information and disclosure program conforms with the requirements of CNSC RDGD 99.3. The next three slides will cover the CNSC's Independent Environmental Monitoring Program, or IEMP. The objective of the IEMP is to verify that public health and the environment around the CNSC regulated facilities are not adversely affected by releases to the environment, confirm that the licensee's environmental program adequately protects the public and the environment, and to complement the CNSC's compliance program. Sampling plans are developed for publicly accessible locations and are site-specific. In 2014 and 2015, CNSC staff carried out an IEMP campaign around the Pickering site. Air, water, soil, sediment, vegetation, and milk samples were analyzed for a number of parameters, including tritium, organically bound tritium, gross alpha and gross beta, radioactive particulates of cesium-137, cobalt-60, and radioactive iodine. The measured radioactivity in all samples were below CNSC reference levels. These reference levels are based on conservative assumptions about the exposure that would result in a dose of 0.1 millisievert per year, which represents 1/10 of the CNSC's public dose limit of 1 millisievert per year. Overall, the IAMP results are consistent with the results of OPG's Environmental Protection Program and indicate that the public and the environment around the Pickering site, which includes the Pickering Waste Management Facility, are protected. This slide shows the surface water monitoring results from the IEMP. The measured radioactivity in surface water samples taken around the Pickering site were below Health Canada's drinking water guidelines. I will now turn the presentation over to Ms. Tadros, who will discuss the proposed license and license conditions handbook, as well as CNSC staff's overall conclusions and recommendations.
CNSC staff recommend that the Commission issue OPG a license that contains standard license conditions plus 3 facility-specific license conditions. A copy of a proposed license was appended to CNSC staff's written submission, CMD 17H5. A draft license conditions handbook, also included as part of staff CMD, provides compliance verification criteria used to verify compliance with the conditions in the license and also includes non-mandatory recommendations and guidance on enhancing the effectiveness of the safety and control measures. These next two slides outline CNSC staff's conclusions and recommendations for the Pickering Waste Management Facility license renewal. So in conclusion, CNSC staff have found that OPG is qualified to carry out the activities authorized by the license and will, in carrying out the activity, make adequate provision for the protection of the environment, the health and safety of persons, and the maintenance of national security and measures required to implement international obligations to which Canada has agreed. CNSC staff recommend that the Commission renew the Pickering Waste Management Facility Operations License for a period of 11 years to August 2028, and in recommending an 11-year license term, CNSC staff took into consideration OPG's operating experience and demonstrated compliance in carrying out the activities under its current license. CNSC staff also took into consideration the robustness of OPG's existing programs that provide assurances that safety-significant activities are examined and that safety is maintained. CNSC staff also note that annual reporting to the Commission of public proceedings allow for frequent public updates regarding CNSC's regulatory oversight activities and OPG's implementation of new and upcoming CSA standards and CNSC regulatory documents. Therefore, taking all of this into consideration, CNSC staff view that an 11-year license term would allow OPG to continue its safe operation while maintaining transparency of operation, public engagement, and adequate regulatory oversight. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.